And the African Development Bank has concluded its bid to co-finance the construction of Mozambique's integrated liquefied natural gas plant by signing a senior loan of $400 million for the transformational project. The Mozambique LNG Area 1 project is estimated to cost over $20 billion. Yes, so it is ranked as Africa's single largest foreign direct investment to date. Now, with the signing on the 15th of July, the bank joins a global syndicate of commercial banks, development finance institutions and export credit agencies to provide the requisite financing for the project. Well, for more on this story, for a greater understanding of this project, we're now being joined by Farai Muvuti, a political analyst with the Southern African Times. Farai, it's brilliant to have you back on Newsday with us again, this time looking into Africa's single largest foreign direct investment to date. Tell us more about this project. I mean, who is involved and when do they also plan to have the field developed and the gas plant up? Because if I am correct, it has been pushed back quite a bit up until date.
Well, thank you again for having me, guys. This is quite an interesting investment. It's considering the size of Mozambique, it becomes the largest investment in Africa. If one is to put it in context, if one is to look at 2019 FDI inflow, within the sub-Saharan Africa, we reached about 40 billion. Now, Mozambique has been able to do half of that with just this investment. So it's a critical investment in a sense, but one must read it from two particular perspectives. Now, before I get into that, I'll answer who's involved. It's predominantly Total, which is the French, and the US investment chain in terms of investment, where it's predominantly, but they are European banks involved in the integration, but a larger chunk of the investment is between the US and France. And from a geopolitical perspective, if we are to analyze it, it seems to speak to a new strategy from the US side of things. Because if you're to look at it from a security perspective, the US has a naval base within that area, and equally within a radius, quite a short radius, has in Botswana. That is, it has a base within a U.S. base within Botswana. Sorry about that. Now, when you look at it from that perspective, you see that within the current global trade contest, there seems to be a new frontier for investment for the U.S. and the gateway being that region. Because if you consider naval and gas presence, there might be a scenario here that we paint, but will be highly assumptive on that. But let's go into the critical aspect of the deal. Now, it being the largest deal in Africa, it then creates opportunities here. But I suppose one could draw concerns about what type of opportunities it may draw. So from the US side, it is an opportunity to get into the Southern African hemisphere and really push a challenge towards China. But now from Mozambique's side, the type of employment it creates is going to be predominantly low skill. So that creates the crux of a new debate of value addition and how we can enhance that particular natural gas, which is predominantly liquefied natural gas. But from an economic perspective, which I think the US and the French would take a good advantage of, is that it's predominantly a product within that region that is imported. So with having a local production site, which is Mozambique, which is also a corridor, one would say that those costs would go down, but it is also predicated on the type of deal that has been negotiated.
All right, Farai, I'm glad you actually hatched that one out about things starting up or employment going down to the grassroots there in Mozambique. But looking at it holistically, with the size of the project, with a lot of people talking about climate change and moving away from fossil fuel, how did they still get a green light after all that talk, basically, still in the air?
Well, this is a great question, because you are right. Within the local domestic body politic, there is the agitation that we should be moving towards green energy. But I think with Africa being impacted with climate change as we are, it should be a critical question. However, I think government policies are balanced towards the crisis at hand. If you consider it is Mozambique is currently facing a security concern with over, I think at record currently, I'm not sure what the current official record is, but the last record I saw, which is about a night ago, it's about a record of 1,000 people dead as a consequence of a presence, what is suspected to be a presence of ISIS. Right. So if you look at these competing, varying aspects of detail that inform what government policy becomes, then climate change unfortunately becomes not a priority. So to answer your question directly, I think what they put forward is the potential of growth in order for them to build up the economy so that they can deal with climate change from a more holistic perspective. Considering that a lot of our economies have had a very limited inflow, and as I cited before, FDI inflow in total within sub-Saharan Africa has been at 40 billion. They've got half. I think they'll take that deal.
Farai, before we round up this conversation, you have given us a great breakdown and understanding. Let's speak about the fact that if this is a success, Mozambique is said to be pushed to a middle-income country by the mid-2030s. But we have seen in the past, and we also know that across Africa, when we have big projects like this, corruption is not kept in the corner. Corruption is often right in our faces. How can we really assure that this will trickle down to the average man or woman, not just in Mozambique, but across Africa?
Well, I think this is equally a good question as well. And it draws into two aspects. So I want to tackle this question with a more analytical perspective from one angle, but also to give an opinion on what I think, a recommendative opinion. So the first one would be, it is down to the negotiation and the type of policy formulation that would guide such type of negotiations. Now, from the reading of it, we purely have a sense of what's really out there in terms of the terms and conditions, in terms of how this corporation will be governed. But in terms of whether within the context of deliverables, that will have a trickle-down effect is yet to be seen. And as you had asserted earlier, that these kind of deals have been seen before, we are yet to see what kind of trickle-down effect would come in order to establish that particular fairness. Now, to go on to my recommendative opinion, well, Africa needs to begin to trade as a bloc. So, for instance, you have within that particular region, you have Mozambique, you have South Africa, and you have Zimbabwe. We have to have a regional bloc approach to how we invest, or rather how we negotiate, because in negotiations, it's going to be what you can bargain. Now, when South Africa, Mozambique, and Zimbabwe stand together, what you then have is a larger bargaining chip on the table, right? But if you're negotiating as Mozambique, one would hope and assume that the terms of reference as it relates to deliverables will be equally, will establish an equilibrium of sorts when it comes to the socioeconomic conditions of that particular country. But I think there should be a push from African states, especially when negotiating with such huge economies, that they should be either from a regional bloc perspective or a continental perspective. As it, of course, continental is a bit a utopian, but we can start from a regional bloc.
All right. Many thanks to you, Farai, for giving us a holistic view into what's happening in Mozambique. Looking like good times. Farai Muvuti talking about Southern African Times correspondent.